Hi, Alan Stratton from Woodturns. I obtained this piece of honey locust, I believe, some time ago. It was very wet and green, so I started to turn it, let it dry, and then as I was finishing it, I saw a webinar by Phil Irons where he demonstrated his coloring technique. So I saw it as a perfect opportunity to try it out myself. So in the technique, he layers in the color, and I think it has some works. It provides a little bit more variation in the color, some due to the grain, some due to my sanding and other finishing, but it provides an interesting figure and a decent approach. So this is wet to dry and with dying to color it. So let's turn it. I started this turning before COVID struck. The wood had dried enough that the bark came right off and developed some large checks in the end grain. I sliced off some from the end. That took out some of the cracks, but I did not think it would be good wood for a bowl. A vase may work better and come from the solid portion of the wood. So I sliced off the corners and mounted the wood between centers. Now to cut off all those corners. Fortunately, that is what my lathe is very good at. My large bowl gouge is my preferred tool for this work. A large spindle roughing gouge works great also, but I have gotten used to doing this with the heavy bowl gouge. Once round, I need to cut a tenon for a more secure mount. Now that the wood is mounted in my chuck, I can rough shape the exterior. The wood is still a little damp, so I need to allow some extra for warpage as it dries. I'm continuing with my bowl gouge, but take some time for some skew practice. This is kind of a waste to get a great surface, as I will have to go over it again after it dries. I need to drill it out to hollow it. With this long piece of wood hanging so long and so far out from the chuck, I worry about keeping a good hold and the wood staying put in the chuck. My DIY steady rest comes to the rescue. Since it was only for drilling and not some heavy hollowing, I may not need it so much. But since it is easy to mount, why not use it for insurance? I'm drilling with large Forstner bits. The bits are large enough that the chuck can go into the wood as far as the tailstock can advance. The wood is hard, but slow and steady wins the race. It turns out that the wood was pretty dry when I started. It did not lose much weight at all, and it did not take very much work to refine the exterior. Then I did a little more hollowing. The wood is hard and tough going. The steady rest is handy again as I trim back the top of the vase. But then I can use a faceplate to steady the end while I refine the exterior one more time.
Now I can start the process I saw Phil Irons demonstrate. I even purchased the thick triangular scraper that he used. I used the scraper without a handle. I like it because I can turn on the tool rest into a more of a shearing position. After observing some tear out, I changed to the scrape from large diameter to smaller diameter, then cleaned up the tear out. Usually, I would thoroughly sand the piece before applying dye. Instead, immediately I applied ample dye to the wood without any sanding. I let it dry thoroughly. The alcohol-based dye dries fairly quickly, even in my cold shop. Then power sand with a 3-inch disc with 120 grit. There are already interesting patterns in the remaining dyed wood. Then immediately apply the same dye, the same as before. I think the theory is that sanding burnishes the wood and prevents stain from penetrating. After it dried, power sand again with 120 grit. My dust protection is paying off. The green dust is nasty. Then immediately apply the same dye, the same as before. Had I sanded before any dye, the wood would look very differently. Again, dry and power sand with 220 grit. This is getting repetitive. Apply dye. Dry and power sand with 320 grit. Then another application of dye. Dry and power sand with 400 grit. My final dye is some yellow that should be color compatible with the green. Then sand again. Actually, I think I went 1 grit too far. My yellow should have been after the 320 grit. No harm done. Then protect the chuck and start applying the first of many coats of rattle-can lacquer with the lathe turning slowly. After careful wet sanding with water to remove orange peel and a final coat of lacquer, I can part the vase off from the base, trying for a slight hollow, but keeping the final nub sufficiently far away from the final surface. I'm sanding off the remaining nub with sandpaper mounted on a pad mounted to my Jacob's chuck on the headstock. After sanding, I can sign and apply a little finish to the bottom. I am not applying dye to the bottom. I think this colored vase needs a shiny finish. Wet sanding removed the orange peel. Now buffing will shine it quite nicely. That completes this dyed vase. I do not think I did it exactly as Phil Irons did. He has had a lot more practice. If you get a chance to see him demo it, it would be worthwhile. Meanwhile, I will look for another opportunity with light wood to practice this finish process. I like it and want to do more of this finish. Please give this video a thumbs up, subscribe on my website, and tell your friends. I appreciate your comments and questions. Every week, I make a new wood turning video and add it to my website. As usual, I appeal for you to wear your full face shield for safety, and anytime the lathe is running. I will see you next week with another wood turning video. Be wise in these COVID times, count your blessings instead of your problems, and stay healthy.